Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to our latest Ask the Leaders Facebook Live Q&A. My name is Darryl Smalley, and I'm the Executive Member for Culture, Leisure and Communities at City of York Council. This week, we're delighted to be joined by representatives from the education, public health and wellbeing sectors to discuss the preparations taking place for the return of pupils to schools and colleges from Monday. Today, we'll be focusing particularly on the guidance around testing and health measures, as well as the support available for parents and pupils. Before I go on and let the panel introduce themselves, I'd just like to take a quick minute to highlight the ongoing work of our education team at the council, as well as the many teachers and school staff who have all been excellent at providing support to pupils through this difficult time. As we'll all appreciate, the last year has been extremely difficult for those pupils, their families and teachers, and for children who have not been able to spend this period in the structured and safe environment of their schools. This past year has been especially hard. That is why I'm so grateful for all the teachers for their fantastic work and the support they've been able to provide pupils through remote learning or in-person education for key and vulnerable pupils. We all appreciate the parents might still be anxious and have many questions in the light of ever-changing government guidance. So I'm glad that today we will be able to address these concerns and share the information and support that's currently available for parents and pupils across the city. The return of more children to schools and colleges is the start of our journey back to normality. Whilst rates have significantly fallen in the city, thanks to everyone's efforts, we all need to continue to follow the rules and continue to work together to protect one another. Whilst the current government guidance remains to stay at home as much as you can, please do remember to look after your physical and mental well-being. And sadly, whilst we still can't socialise and mix with other groups just yet, if we keep our collective efforts going, then we'll soon be able to do that in the months ahead. Now, I'll stop talking there and just whip round the panel and let everyone introduce themselves. I know Zoom looks different for everyone's screen, so I'm not picking favourites, but I'll just go to Maxine first.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Maxine Squire. I'm Assistant Director for Education and Skills with City of York Council.
Thanks, Maxine. Fiona?
Hello everyone, I'm Fiona Williams and I'm the Chief Executive of Explore York Libraries and Archives, and we deliver the public library service and the City Archive for the City of York.
Thank you, Fiona. Rob.
Good evening everyone, my name is Rob Berry. I'm a Service Manager for Children and Young People's Mental Health Services in York.
Thanks, Rob. Louise.
Good evening, my name's Louise Doswell. I'm Deputy Chief Executive and Principal of York College.
Thanks, Louise. Anita.
Hello, everyone. I'm Anita Dobson. I'm the Nurse Consultant in Public Health at City of York Council.
Brilliant, thank you. Tina.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tina Hardman. I'm the Principal Educational Psychologist at the City of York Council.
Thanks, Tina. Sandra.
Good evening. I'm Sandra Burnhill at Askham Bryan College. I'm Vice Principal at the college.
Thanks, Sandra. And last but certainly not least, Andrew.
Hello, I'm Councillor Andrew Waller. I'm the Executive Member for Economy and Strategic Planning.
Brilliant. Thank you, everyone. So for those that haven't watched one of our Facebook Live Q&As before, we have some wider conversation topics highlighted for discussion tonight. So we'll start with answering those, but please don't forget that you can ask questions live in the comments section. And the fantastic communications team at the council will be looking at what you're saying. Hopefully, good positive questions that we can discuss tonight, and we'll be able to answer those live this evening. First, however, we'll turn to Anita Dobson, Nurse Consultant in Public Health, to give us an up-to-date overview of the current situation in York.
Thank you. Cheers. I'd just like to reiterate what Councillor Smalley said and really thank everybody across York for their efforts in keeping yourselves, your families and the wider population of York safe, because I think what I'm about to tell you, just an overview of what COVID looks like across York. It is a good picture, and you'll see that because I'll compare it to regional and national average, but also tempered with that, not to be complacent. I know we've got the roadmap out and, you know, we're going to get more freedoms, but don't be complacent at this time. The end may be in sight, but we just need to keep going. And I know people are tired, but you're doing well. So looking at the data for York then, when we look at the rates of COVID over the last 7 days, and when we look at rates, it's per 100,000 population, our rate is sitting at 66. Compared regionally, that number is 128, and nationally 94.1. So you can see that York's in a good position on that data point. Then when we look at another standard, which is the 7-day positivity rate for PCR testing, and PCR testing is the one that gets sent off to labs where you have to go to the centre to be done. And our rate is 3.18. Regionally, that rate is 5.9 and nationally 4.1. So again, we're in a good position. Our contact tracing is really good. The contact tracing, the contacts that have been identified, our rate is 90.2 and completed rate 75.5. So people are being contacted and asked to isolate. And again, that is contributing to why we've got why we're in such a good position in York. The other thing, and what's probably pertinent to this meeting, is around children. And our 7 days up to the 1st of March, that's the latest data we've got, there were 5 children of primary and secondary age that were COVID positive. So the numbers are extremely low. And then I know people are interested in vaccinations. The vaccination rollout nationally and in York in particular has been absolutely phenomenal. And as people will know that the NHS are responsible for rolling out the vaccinations. We support, the local authorities support our colleagues in health on that rollout. And that rollout's been done in a particular order, and that order is to protect the NHS and save lives. And when we look at those age range cohorts, our rates for the over 80 age range, the percentage of people that have been vaccinated for the first dose is 95.7%. When we look at the next age range, which is 75 to 79, that's 100%. I mean, these figures are absolutely fantastic. And then when we look at the age range 70 to 74, that is at 97.4%, and that's for the first dose. And the age ranges now are starting to move that. We don't have the data yet for those age ranges that are currently going through. But what I would say to people is, as and when you're offered your vaccine, please take it up. If you've got any queries, please get in touch with either public health and we'll be able to answer some queries if you've got any concerns around that. So that's me on the bit of an overview.
That's brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Anita. And thank you to the people that were already asking questions. I promise we will get to them, but we'll just kick off with our first question of this evening. And yeah, as the panelists, please do feel free to jump in if there's something you'd like to ask to an answer. And I think we'll go to Maxine, if that's okay. And the question being, how will I know if my child is meant to be at school on Monday?
As you know, the national announcement is that schools will reopen from the 8th of Monday, the 8th of March, and you should have been contacted by your own school to confirm the arrangements that they have in place. At the moment, we have got no reports of schools in York not opening on Monday, the 8th of March. And so, as I say, the arrangements will have been communicated to you. And I know that head teachers this week have been putting in place their communication with all their children and families. So keep an eye on what's coming through from your school, check the school website, all the details are there.
Brilliant, thank you, Maxine. You caught me just at the end of a drink there, so that'll teach me, won't it? Thank you so much, Maxine. Following on from that, I guess, again, potentially to you and Anita, is the question, what should I do if I or my child is on the shielding list? Which I know will concern many in York.
Yeah, Anita, would you like to answer that one?
Oh, you're just on mute.
You'd have thought after 12 months we'd have learnt, wouldn't you? I think when you get notification that your child is on the shielding list, then the idea is that, you know, you shouldn't send your child to school if they've got symptoms or, you know, follow the national guidance. But the shielding letter is voluntary. You are not advised to attend school or college until further notice, really. All 16 to 18-year-olds with underlying health conditions, really, we know that that puts them at higher risk of disease, but they will be called for vaccination. They're in the cohort that's going to be vaccinated now, so that should be happening soon. But for if you're shielding, the advice is stay at home. The people in the family doesn't have to shield. It's only the person themselves. But obviously, anybody coming and going into the household, please take extra care. Hand washing, make sure the hands face space is really important for those people that are shielding.
Thank you ever so much, Anita. And as someone who has a parent who works in a school who is on the shielding list, I know how occasionally difficult it is to keep up to date with the guidance. So I know there's a whole host of information and up-to-date information at york.gov.uk/coronavirus. So if I'm sure do go there. We'll just well, I know we've got lots and lots of questions to go through, but I think as people are hopefully asking questions live, we'll just pick up a few now, but we'll come back to ones we missed later. And we've had a question from Mike, which is, can the council give an answer to how many people have contracted symptoms of COVID after being vaccinated, as it's supposed to be safe, but how many are suffering side effects of COVID-19? I think this is probably one for you, Anita.
Yeah, we don't have that data at the moment. This is something that we're looking at now as the vaccination programme is being rolled out. What I can say is that there is no vaccine that is 100%, will give you 100% immunity. Okay. And when the government first announced the levels of immunity that we would get from this vaccine, I think, to me, I were really pleased. I think it's comparable with other vaccines. But what we can say is that when you get vaccinated, if you do contract COVID, the vaccine reduces the effects of the illness. That's what all vaccines do. So we know that you can contract an illness after being vaccinated from anything, including COVID, but the effects will be a lot less. We don't know the numbers yet. We're working on it.
Thank you, Anita. I know our comms team are doing a good job trying to, I guess, tease out the concerns behind some questions this evening, but just to pick up on the Hall Road Park question that's come in about its state at the moment. I know the local ward committee there, so the Hall Road ward councillors, had invested a significant amount in improving the beck and the conditions of the water flowing through there. And I have a feeling that work may have been disrupted by COVID and recent flood events. So it could well be that the work, that the last picture I saw did look horrific, but it was purposely so because an awful lot of cleaning was about to commence, and it could just be that work has taken longer than expected. But I know our comms team, the council's comms team, are asking for further details, and we can pick up on that. Just moving on to some of the pre-submitted questions. Just there we go. I'll just try and find the right page. Another question potentially for you, Anita, and Maxine, but also will probably concern almost everyone on the call. And that is, what safety measures are in place in schools now to protect pupils and staff? I don't know who would like to jump in. Maxine, do you want to go first, and then if anyone else?
Every one of our schools has completed a full risk assessment, which they've been updating very regularly throughout the period of the pandemic. So each time there's been a change in lockdown arrangements, each time there's been a change in access to school sites, then that risk assessment has been updated using the latest guidance from our health and safety team and also from public health. Schools in the city have been really rigorous in terms of the measures they've had in place. And at each stage, they have drawn on the advice from our public health teams to sense check that they've got the right arrangements in place. I think what we can say is that they've been very, very successful. As Anita's just said, the incidences of COVID in schools in York has been very, very low indeed. It's been a handful of cases. And that is because they have followed to the letter the public health guidelines and been really, really rigorous in ensuring that their safety measures are followed. So we've got a lot of confidence in the way that they operate. They are safe environments.
I mean, I'd just like to add to that, you know, I'm in daily contact with head teachers across York. whenever there's an issue or a query, they can raise it immediately with public health, and they get practically an immediate response during week. And also they have access to public health over the weekend as well. We're on call. We have an on-call rota for public health to be able to respond to queries, for queries for everybody, not just for teachers. But also another marker of how safe the schools are across York is there have not been any whole school closures in York. When there's been an issue, school staff have responded in a timely manner to safeguard children. And, you know, I think there's a testament to how well that they've stood up to the rigors of this pandemic. And you can see that, as Maxine says, the number of cases for children and no school closures. It's been phenomenal.
That's brilliant. Thank you ever so much. Conscious that we've got a lot of topics to cover, so I might move away slightly from I guess measures within schools, but we can always come back to it later. Just moving on to the school year. A question about what will be happening with this year's exams. So I know this has come up time and time again, and at various stages on these Facebook Live Q&As, there's been slightly different answers. But I guess what is the latest information on this year's examinations?
Obviously, it's been confirmed now by DFE and Ofqual that assessment will be via teacher assessment. Some schools will use a variety of methods for ensuring that they've got robust evidence that supports teacher assessment. So there may be some schools that do run in-school supervised tests to add to their evidence base. And each school is confirming its arrangements with its young people and with parents about how they're actually developing that strong evidence base to award that teacher assessed grade. Because one of the things that we've got to remember is that Ofqual and the exam awarding bodies are putting in a moderation process, which gives that extra layer of assurance to validate the way that grades are being assessed this year. Head teachers, and I know the colleges, are working extremely hard on their individual arrangements, and they're up against it basically because they haven't got a lot of time now to actually put those arrangements in place and get the young people back and ready to do their final bit of learning as they work towards that final assessment. The other thing to provide reassurance is that the grade is awarded according to the work that's been covered, because, you know, there's that recognition that there has been a disruption to the coverage of the exam syllabus. So schools are encouraged to assess according to what they've actually been able to cover during the time that they've had children and young people in school. So yeah, it's teacher assessment, evidenced in a range of different methods by individual schools. They are communicating to their parents the way in which those grades are being assessed and awarded as we speak. I don't know whether colleagues from the two colleges would want to add.
I've got almost a follow-up question, which might lead nicely on to colleges, which is what will change in the exams. I'll start that again. Will the change in exams change the process of applications to colleges? So potentially picking up the last question on this one. I think, Sandra, do you want to go first, and then we'll go to Louise?
Yeah, I'll probably finish the first one around what Maxine was saying. Obviously, we're a land-based college, so in terms of a lot of our students are practical assessments, you know, in terms of making sure that the grades, so we're bringing students back from Monday to undertake quite a lot of practical assessments in terms of making sure that they get the best grade that they can around those practical competence-based skills that the land-based industry demand in terms of next steps and things. So that's the sort of first bit in terms of finishing this year off, actually. In terms of sort of next steps going forward, probably in terms of the exams, the process in terms of application, no, the application system is the same. So in effect, you start applying for, you know, your next steps really now. Think about those next steps in terms of applications, and then the same process will happen. Where there will be a results day. We've been told that it will be earlier this year, but there will be a results day, and they're looking at the 9th of August, which actually is 2 weeks earlier than planned, to give that chance for appeals and various things in terms of going to university or next steps. So there is a bit of movement at the moment in terms of sort of what's happening from now really until next year, as in next academic year. I don't know whether Louise wants to come in and I can come back in.
Yeah, similarly at York College, where there's competency-based and skills-based activities need to be undertaken, we're bringing those students back. And also some of the students get qualifications that are licensed to practice. So again, we have to be sure that their competency is at such a level that they can pass those qualifications for their industry sector. Again, same as Sandra, you know, no change to our application process. And we're in the same situation as we were last year, whereby there was, you know, centre assessed grades or tutor assessed grades. So we will just accept the gradings that are given by that process, and assist any students that may find it a slight challenge for the qualifications that they have been successful in securing at the college, and just work and support them through the next year.
That's brilliant, thank you so much. Another question just following on from that is that to potentially yourself, Louise and Sandra, and then possibly Maxine as well, is that there have been reports of summer schools and potentially an extended school year. Are schools and colleges planning for that? I don't know, Sandra, do you want to go first, and then back to Louise, and then to Maxine, if that's okay?
Yes. So yes, we are looking at options at the moment, as I'm sure York House as well. We are looking at it's more about the catch-up. So what we're wanting to make sure is that no student is disadvantaged in terms of the lockdown period. We're trying to get everybody caught up, you know, in terms of making sure that they have the best sort of next steps in terms of their progression. So yes, we will be looking at maybe some small groups funding around making sure the maths and English, or if they're struggling in terms of, you know, they've missed out on some lessons, you know, it's various things that we're looking at a lot of that. We're also looking at probably, we have quite a lot of higher education programs in the college. So again, we're looking at some summer schools around that level 3, you know, A-level sort of type student, then progressing on to university. And again, they might have missed out on some key learning in terms of study skills for university and things. So that we're looking again at some summer schools around sort of July, end of July, sort of August time again for those. So yes, I think the thing is to just watch the space, watch for the websites, and you know, look out for those sort of next steps, summer schools, taster days, everything to get students back re-engaged into learning and ready for the next steps.
Yeah, again, the same at York, you know, we're doing everything we can. Obviously, the summer schools are too late for those students that will be having tutor assessed grades or centre assessed grades for this year. But obviously what we want to do is give them as much opportunity to catch up on the learning that they've missed, so they're well prepared for progressing into the academic year next year.
Brilliant, thank you. Maxine, was there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, it's very much as colleagues were saying about planning around catch-up activities. So schools are just thinking through what's the most effective way to deliver those. And one of the options that they do have is for the secondary schools, they can opt into running a summer school. Some of them are still just finalising their plans about whether that is their intention or not. But they're all of them drawing up their plans about how they're going to use their catch-up funding at the moment.
That's brilliant, thank you, Maxine. Moving on to testing, but potentially back to yourself, Maxine, but also Anita. Will testing be mandatory for children returning to school?
No. No, it can't be made mandatory. Testing's a voluntary activity. So it's the offer of a test which schools have to make, and it can't be a barrier to returning to education if you've not been tested. So the guidance is very clear about that.
That's brilliant, thank you, Maxine. Anita, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, not really. I mean, people can access testing. Schools have put things in place. I think it's been communicated out to all parents and carers what that offer is. Students are able to access testing in schools in a lot of schools. The schools that are not doing testing in school, then pupils and families can access testing across the 3 testing sites across York. That's the LRF testing sites. So there's good access for all families and pupils to get testing.
Thank you so much. That's really positive. The next question following on from that we have is what are the arrangements for testing for children returning to school next week, which I know you've covered a bit of, but do you want to just talk about from what's happening from Monday?
Yeah, all our secondary schools have got the offer of testing in place. They are doing that in different ways. Some of them, as Anita said, are doing all their tests on the school site. Some of them are doing a mixture of doing tests 1 and 2 at school and then asking them to use the community sites for test 3. And we've got a couple of schools that have asked families to use the testing sites, the community testing sites this week prior to the return to school. So it's all those arrangements are that each school has communicated to its own school community about which set of arrangements is in place.
Brilliant, thank you, Maxine. Anita, Louise or Sandra, is there anything you wanted to add on that?
Not really. I mean, we would encourage, families to get access for their young people. It's available to students age 11 and upwards. I think it's, to have a test in school or at one of the community sites. This is about building confidence for when the home testing starts. So I would really encourage, and for any families that want to do, have the family tested, they can get that done while they're at the community sites if they book on. So if you're turning up with a young person of secondary school age as a family, so long as you're 11 or above, you can also get tested at the same time if you book on and make an appointment, and I would encourage people to do that.
Thank you.
And just in terms of the sort of colleges, so we're starting testing from, well, I had my test yesterday, so the staff have been tested this week. So we're testing all the staff this week, and then next week, actually from Sunday, we start the testing of our residential students. Some residential students are coming back Sunday, and then from Monday, the pupils will be contacted in terms of the day to attend for at the start of the test, which is on Monday, but not all pupils are obviously coming back on Monday. We're doing a staggered start to be able to make sure that everyone's tested as they come into college or at some point during that first day. And then there'll be another group coming on the Tuesday. So it'll be a series of testing. It is a mammoth task to get everybody to, or offer the test, as Anita and Maxine says.
Brilliant, thank you. Louise, was there anything to add about your college?
No, same as Sandra, we've got everything in place, huge logistical challenge, but we've, as always, as colleges, we've got over those, and we've got 440 students booked in on Monday, so that will be an interesting day.
Yes, no, it's never a dull moment, is there, just to sit down. Well, thank you so much for explaining that, and hopefully that will be a relief to people watching. I know we're almost coming up at halfway through tonight's session, so just a reminder that if you are watching, you've got a question, then do put it in, and we'll put it to our panelists. Because we're halfway through, just to go to I guess another area about concerning emotional well-being, and this might be for Tina and Rob. And the question is, what are the signs that I could look out for to see if my child is dealing well or not dealing well with the changes and impacts that lockdown has brought? I don't know, I guess, Tina, did you want to go first, and then potentially we'll go to Rob?
Yeah, happy to. So I suppose the first thing to say is that there'll be a really big, wide range of both behavioural and emotional changes that children will just naturally show, and that actually is just perfectly normal in a situation like this. So I think that's to be expected, and there'll be a range from those who sort of become more anxious and withdrawn and hypersensitive and emotional, maybe weepy and that sort of thing, to those who will perhaps really struggle with regulating their behaviour and will appear more moody or more angry. those hopefully will settle down. I think it's important to remember that it's a really tricky time, and that there's going to be lots of anxiety, and that however it manifests itself, the underlying kind of cause will be anxiety. And hopefully, as children go to school and it becomes regular, and they're going every day, and they're meeting their friends, and they're having distractions, and they're getting back into learning, those signs and symptoms will gradually start to fade. I don't know if Rob's got anything to add.
I guess just to echo that, I think young people, when they're experiencing emotional difficulties, psychological difficulties, a lot of that will be manifested in their behaviour. So I think it is just making a note of, if you notice behaviour changes. That's not to say if you notice a behaviour change, start to panic. I think it's just a cue for you to be curious and to sit down with them and reflect back to them what you've noticed. Genuinely ask if they're okay, and make time to listen. I think we have busy lives, even during lockdown. I think because we've been around each other so much more, we probably paid each other slightly less attention because we're just used to people being in the background. But I think now is, about really making time to sit down and say, I've noticed this. I wanted to just check you're okay, and ask them how they're doing. And that's going to be really positive. With anything to do with emotional well-being, it starts with a conversation. Everything starts with a conversation. And I think it's an abnormal situation we're in. So it's perfectly normal to expect them not to be okay. So it's not a sign of anything we need to worry about. Actually, it's just about giving care and attention in those first stages. And as Tina says, as they go back, hopefully they get back into routines, they get back into structure, then those difficulties will start to subside.
Thank you ever so much, Rob and Tina. That's some great advice. And I guess a follow-up question that we have is, I guess, and it probably follows on from that advice you've just given. So if you've had the conversation and you do think your child or a family member is struggling with lockdown, I guess it's just a question about what support could you signpost to for those families in that situation. I guess, Tina?
Well, I think one of the most important things is, as Rob has said about the social connection, is trying to make sure that you are connected as a family before you sort of start looking outside, because part of it will be about giving your child or young person space and time and having those conversations. But sometimes that will be about having conversations just when you're out on a walk, or when you're doing a jigsaw, or over a tea table, just kind of incidental conversations. And sometimes those conversations will perhaps take a more formal route, and you might want to sit down and do a mind map with a child. It will very much depend on your own young person and what's going to suit them. I think if sort of trying all those things doesn't actually work, and you really do become worried, there's a number of things that you can do. I think the first port of call would actually be to make sure that school are aware that your young person is having difficulties, because it may be that between the two of you can put things in place. So it may be that they have an ELSA at school. That's ELSAs are emotional literacy support assistants who are trained to specifically work with children on issues around their emotions and their feelings and their behaviours. So it could be that some ELSA time could be given to your child or young person. It might be that there are other things that, if they're feeling physically unsafe, they may need to sit near the doorway, so that they'll get a sense of being trapped, but have a sense that there's always an escape route. And there's probably lots of small strategies like that school could also support. So I think one of the key things is making sure that school are aware that your young person is struggling a bit. And then for themselves, in terms of parents, this educational psychology service do have a weekly helpline on a Wednesday morning that any parent can ring if they're concerned or worried about their young person's well-being or learning. I know Rob will probably mention the SPA as well, and other things that are in CAMS, but I think the important thing is to make sure that as a parent, you are also looking after your own well-being and making sure you're not kind of just storing up lots of anxiety, because children pick up on that as well. And so if you are becoming more anxious yourself about your child going to school, then that will also make your child more anxious too. So I think it's about making sure that if they're not if they don't seem to be settling after a few weeks, then I think it's about looking at what are the triggers, what are their actually main causes of that, what's maintaining their behaviour, and what can you and school do together to try and support them. That's
absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Tina. A lot of comprehensive information there. Rob, is there anything left? Is there any other advice?
Well, I think there's a few. I was reflecting on this the other day, and I was reflecting on over the course of this last year, what has children's experience of childhood been? And then thinking about that in context of what was my experience of childhood. And it got me thinking about He-Man. Now, bear with me, okay? But like as a kid, my peer networks were formed around my interests. So, started off with He-Man, then it went to Action Man and all the other things. And your peer groups ebbed and flowed according to what you were interested in. And there's a genuine question about how have we supported children to maintain those peer networks over the lockdown period? What are they going to look like when they go back? So there is an opportunity to try and, over the course of the next week, if they haven't been in touch with some of their friends for a while, just ping the parents a Facebook message and just say, have they got time for a quick chat online? Can they do a bit of a catch up? So that they're not going in cold on day one next week, so that they've started to reform some of those connections that we maybe took for granted. Well, I certainly took for granted sort of growing up. So that would be the bit I kind of would add. In terms of resources, I know there's some resources available on the City of York Council website. There's also the livewellyork.org website that's got some resources. BBC Bite Size have actually done some fantastic little fact sheets and resources for people that you can go and you can refer to. I kind of go back to my earlier point about kind of not jumping the gun, about it's okay to not be okay in this situation, and we don't need to rush and send in the cavalry. Actually, what we need to do is just explore what's happening and try and put additional support in place, try and listen more, try and do things like routine, structure. I know chatting to friends, they were saying their kids during lockdown have been getting up far later than they usually would going for school. Well, getting them back into that routine rather than waiting until Monday. Start to do your morning routine as it would be if you were going to school and work, so that they're getting back into that structure, and planning their day in that way is going to be really important. If you do still have concerns, you can't speak to school. That would always be our first port of call. It would always be our first bit of advice. Schools spend a lot of time with young people throughout the course of a week and have lots of support available in school. Don't forget, you can also speak to your GP if you feel like you're really struggling, and you can access information about how to be referred to specialist mental health services through the Tees, Askham, Wear Valleys website as well. So support is there, but what I'm saying is don't panic. Let's get young people back in school. Let's get the routines back, the structures back, the peer networks back. Let's let things dissipate a bit and then see where you are, rather than on day one coming home and feeling very anxious.
Thank you, Rob and Tina. Absolutely fantastic advice there. And I think sadly I missed out on He-Man, so I might not have fully appreciated that reference, but I was ostracised for never understanding Power Rangers, so that might be my example. We've had a question from Jane that sort of follows on really well from this question, which is, will there be any extra pastoral support at schools and I guess colleges as well to help young people? I don't know, Maxine, did you want to pick up the schools question then? If Louise and Sandra wanted to come in, we can go to them.
Obviously, schools have been given some extra resources to support them around the return to school and catch up, and it's for them to decide how they use that. And some schools will be reviewing whether they want to put that into extra pastoral support or activities to support wellbeing. And I know some of them are doing that. So there will be a range of ways in which schools are responding at the moment. I think the key message from head teachers, though, and this is their experience from September, is that in the main, they just wanted to get children back in and learning and getting back into those normal routines. And they found that worked in September. Children were ready to get back and start to experience school as they had done before. So I think it is trying to restore that sense of normality is one of the key things, which is what Rob was talking about. And also schools will be providing their normal range of support, as Tina said. Schools in York are well equipped in terms of being able to draw on both internal and external support, like the School Wellbeing Worker Service, their own pastoral teams, the ELSAs. There's a breadth of things out there that they'll be using, and also there is that key relationship between children and their class teacher, which is the most important one for getting them back in and settled into learning.
Can I just come in there? Would that be possible?
Sorry, I was on mute, wasn't I? I've done it. Yes, no, absolutely, Tina. Thank you.
I was just going to say that actually some of the resources that were prepared sort of last time round for September are still going to be really useful for schools. So as an example, the Educational Psychologist Service did a range of e-modules on things such as staff wellbeing and trauma and stress and fostering resilience in children and loss with children. So all those e-modules are still there, would still be useful. There was booklets that went into school about transitioning back. There was guides on what to do with children who are really struggling to get back into school and have emotionally based school avoidance. So there are that range of resources is still there and will still be every bit applicable. There's also, as Maxine was saying about the Wellbeing for Return by York Mind, but there is also Psychological First Aid that is an online resource that all staff have been made aware of, that is about sort of spotting the signs and supporting children. And there's also, for children themselves, there's Cllr, which is an online counselling service. So there is a lot of things out there. So if people did want to have a look at the stuff from the Educational Psychology Service, we have opened our part of the York Education website to be public. So you used to need a login and be a school, but you don't need that anymore. So anyone can do that. And I can certainly give the website address to look at some of those resources.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Tina. Rob.
Yeah, I guess the only bit I wanted to add was to say, we sit here and we say, go and talk to school. But I want to be clear in saying that the onus isn't just on school to manage this. It's a whole system response. And so, we're trying to make sure that we're working very closely with local authority colleagues, Early Help, the School Wellbeing Service, Cllr, and all of the different partner agencies to actually make sure we're identifying what the needs are of the young people, and we're making sure we get them the right help as quickly as possible. So, yes, we want people to talk to schools in the first instance, but to assure people that actually this is about us working as a whole system to provide support for young people.
That's brilliant. Thank you ever so much. I hope that nicely covers it off. I don't know, Sandra and Louise, was there anything you wanted to add from a college perspective? I imagine a lot of it was...
Yes, I think most of it's been covered, actually. I mean, yes, absolutely. Talk to your course manager, course tutor if you're struggling. We have support networks, we have counselling services. So, yes, do. And I probably echo what Maxine said in terms of most young people are really, really keen to get back. They've really missed college and social life and, various things that goes with a school and college environment. Some students will be anxious, there's no doubt about it, but there's certainly a lot very keen to get back to normality and back to learning.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Sandra. And following on from wellbeing, something that's kept me in a sort of relatively positive mood over the last 12 months has been all the fantastic work of the library service. So thank you so much, Fiona, for joining us today. So I guess it's just a question, really, in terms of how have, I know, but I guess sharing with the world how Explore libraries have supported the city, but also have those online materials that potentially school-age children might be able to access.
Thanks, and happy World Book Day, everybody. Today we should all be sharing stories, and in fact we're putting book vouchers in our Lucky Dip packs for children this week, so which are proving very popular. Throughout the lockdown, we've been fortunate enough to be able to keep York, Askham and Tang Hall libraries open for PC access and click and collect for books. The government have identified libraries as an essential service, which we're really pleased about. and there's been a lot of lobbying the government for that. And so we were able to stay open through the lockdown to provide vital PC access for people that don't have it at home. And I think we'd all agree that through this pandemic, the need to be online is even more important than ever. And Cllr is leading a 100% Digital York campaign to get all of residents online. But all through the lockdown as well, we've been providing our usual online services, and we've increased those. So we have ebooks and audio downloads, which have gone through the roof, as you can imagine. We have Press Reader, which is thousands of magazines and newspapers in different languages, with lots for children and young people. I was looking at before I came on this evening, and it's an incredible resource. And I do, you know, you do get a bit tied in with all the back copies of your favourite magazine. Ancestry and Find My Past. Ancestry, which people have been able to access at home. Previously, you had to be in the library to use it. Ancestry has something like 700% increase in use. Everybody has been doing their family history through the lockdown in York. It's just been absolutely incredible. In addition to what we normally have, though, we put what we call Explore at Home. And there are various aspects to this. Our librarians and archivists have been choosing the very best links to accurate and trustworthy sites, because through this pandemic, there's been an awful lot of information out there that isn't accurate, as I'm sure my colleagues here can say even better than me. So we do have a lot of information there about the COVID. We do have a special section about children and COVID with links to government and other sites that support children through this. But also for fun, we have Hoglet Story Times, which are on our YouTube channel. We've got the Astronomer Made Pantomime, which is on our YouTube channel. We're increasing our content on our YouTube channel through an Arts Council fund that's enabled us to experiment with different things. And so there's all sorts of things. We have a video of showing people around the library because they can't visit it at the moment. Our website provides links to authors and stories, lots of fun activities, science experiments to do at home, digital making, Lego clubs, also learning at home, links supporting homeschooling and health information, everything you can imagine. And the children's aspect of this is updated every day by our wonderful children's librarian, Frances Postlethwaite. And the other sections are about reading, health and wellbeing, culture and creativity, information and digital support. So do have a look at those. It's digital recommended websites, and then you see them all, because it is incredible. And it just sort of end with our archives and local history, which are the actual jewel in our crown. And they have put up hundreds of Flickr galleries, and they've been asking people to help describe the photographs. So we've had over 800 responses to that, of people saying, yes, I know where that is, or who those people were. So through the pandemic, we've been able to interact with people through the archives, through various different means, which is great, because that it's the city's archive. It's there for everybody, and in fact, in 100 years' time, people will be coming to look at it to see how York dealt with the pandemic. So it's really important that we gather all that information and put it in the archive.
Thank you so much, Fiona. I'm sure they'll be looking back and going, oh, you know, they use this thing called Facebook. You know, what on earth was that?
Yes.
Various stories like that. And thank you so much for everything that Cllr have been doing. Because I think one of my last social events before the pandemic was the 50th birthday of Clifton Library in my patch. And I think, obviously, speaking to residents there, one of which was recently widowed, and said that without the library, she wouldn't have any social circle at all in the community. So I know keeping them open and as much as possible through the pandemic has supported an awful lot of people in York. Probably just a question sort of following on from that. is what is the plan for the reopening of libraries? So I know obviously 3 have been kept open in the lockdown, but I guess going forwards.
Well, we're following the government's roadmap, and currently we plan to reopen libraries with shorter opening hours on the 12th of April to sort of test the water. We have very strong risk assessments. We work with the Health and Safety Department in the council actually to make sure our risk assessments are very robust so that we can provide COVID secure spaces. And so we will then be able to open the archive reading room later in April. Cafes will be able to open indoors on the 17th of May. Roundtree Park has been open all through the lockdown for takeaways and has been wonderful for people doing their daily exercise in the parks. Stage 4, 21st of June, we hope to be sort of back to normal by then. But obviously, sitting here, you know, I'd be a rich woman if I could predict the future. And so we are just sort of playing it by ear, listening to the government, listening to our users, because we don't know how they'll want to come back, how they'll want to use the library, the spaces. I think it will be a while before we have story times in libraries as we had before, but there's loads of things we can do in place of that, and even better than that. So yes, just about listening to the government advice, listening to our users, and opening and keeping opening rather than having to go backwards again.
Thank you so much, Fiona. And yes, something to look forward to at least, isn't it? The reopening of libraries. And I know some colleagues have enjoyed reading the Yorkshire Post, but also things like the San Francisco Chronicle on a Sunday on Press Reader, which is, really does have everything on there that you could possibly want to read. Moving on, and moving on to Councillor Andrew Waller, if that's okay. We've got a couple of questions for you, and I know obviously yesterday was a very important day for an awful lot of businesses. I guess when will support announced by the Chancellor yesterday be available to businesses?
Right, well, there's been a number of grants over the last months to support businesses to keep them going whilst they've been closed or with very limited opportunities to trade. So dealing first with what was already in the pipeline, the March lockdown grant payments, people have been asking what's happening with that. And government have confirmed that councils will receive the funding for grants up to the 31st of March tomorrow, so that we're ready to process them on Monday. So in many respects, like businesses with their cash flow, we can't issue the sheer volume of grants until we have, as an authority, received the money, as people will appreciate that we have had our own financial stresses in recent months. In terms of the question you raised, Councillor Smalley, in respect to the large number of announcements from the Chancellor yesterday, ensuring that we pay the grants properly, we will need the guidance to be published by government. In previous instances, that has been up to a fortnight between an announcement and us getting the specific advice, so that we can turn that around. We've turned around as quickly as possible the funding to businesses, as we recognise that it's an essential part of keeping them going. So we have, like every authority, asked to make sure that the government publishes this as quickly as possible. We're hoping that because the budget had been scheduled, that all of the guidance had been prepared in advance, and therefore it should be quite soon. But as soon as we have the guidance, as soon as we have the funds to pass forward, we will do that as quickly as possible.
That's brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Andrew. And I know this is obviously a tough time for businesses, and been looking at both the public health guidance from last week, but also on Wednesday. I guess what would your advice be to businesses that are either struggling or looking for information and guidance?
Well, clearly we'd ask them to look at the council website we're conscious that many businesses have fallen between the cracks, and that also goes for micro businesses and for self-employed, recognizing that with the announcement yesterday that there were additional self-employed people brought in to support, it still leaves a large number outside, and we recognize that in the recovery we will want everyone to feel part of that, to be part of the recovery. And therefore, if businesses miss out, please contact economicgrowth@york.gov.uk so that we can make sure that we can get them the help that they need, or else lobby on their behalf.
And can I just come in, Councillor Small, if that's okay? If businesses are wanting specific public health advice around being, reducing the risk of COVID transmission, then they can always send in an email to enquiries.publichealth@york.gov.uk to get specific public health advice as well. Thank you.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Anita and Andrew. I think with that, I was judging what to do because we've got 5 minutes and we've effectively gone through all the questions that we have. I guess I'll risk it by saying if everyone could just go around and I guess give a last piece of advice, either from your institution or even just generally. It might just be personal advice. So I'll whip round, but aware we've now got 4 minutes, so I guess it's 20 to 30 seconds if that's possible. But Maxine, I'll sort of pick on you first. Apologies.
That's fine.
So just a general last 20 seconds of advice to anyone watching.
To really encourage everybody to support good attendance in schools next week. Please feel confident that your local school is ready and waiting to welcome your children in, and that it is perfectly safe for them to go there. And please do sort of encourage your children to get back in school as quickly as possible. Is the best way to support their health and well-being.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Maxine. Fiona?
I would say just keep looking at our at our website. Do pop into Askham Town Hall or York to pick up your click and collect books or use the PCs. But do keep an eye on the website and look forward to seeing everyone on the 12th of April.
Yes, absolutely. Anita?
Oh, it's the cliche for me, isn't it? It's the hands, face, space. Please don't turn off when I've said that. Keep going. Everybody's doing a marvellous job, like I said at the beginning. But the other thing is, when you are offered your vaccine, when you're offered your vaccination from the NHS, please take up that offer. But once you've had your vaccination, you must still remember hands, face, space. Just keep going, everybody. That's my final remark. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. Louise?
Just everybody coming back on Monday. We're looking forward to seeing you all. We have the measures in place, and again I will reiterate what Anita has said: hands, space, face, and please do follow all the guidelines to keep all of the college community safe. Thanks,
Louise. Rob?
I guess I would say please try and remember that it's perfectly okay to not be okay right now, and particularly as we go back to schools next week, wherever possible, to try and make some time to be a family, to talk, to do something, to play games together, to do something that's just about you gelling as a family unit and providing support to those young people.
Thanks, Rob. Tina?
I suppose reiterating what Rob just said, children who are resilient feel that they're safe, feel that they have social connection, and feel a sense of self-belief. So one of the important things is also to remind children that they've been through transitions before in their lives and they've done that successfully, and to try and build on that and make them feel that it will be fine.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Tina. Sandra?
And just to reiterate what others have said, we're really looking forward to seeing you again. We want you back on site, and we will maintain that, in terms of the good health and good well-being, both mental and physical, and absolutely making sure it's safe. And we did very well last time, did York, so let's make sure it happens again. I'm sure it will.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sandra. And final word to you, Andrew.
Well, I concur with previous comments that if you need help, of any variety, ask for it. There are a lot of people out there, willing to provide that, and keep up the efforts to maintain York as a safe place.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Andrew. I'd just like to thank everyone who's asked a question today, both in advance and live on Facebook, as well as thanking our panellists for giving up our time and giving up their time and giving their insight this evening. The council can force myself, Andrew, Maxine and others to come here today, but actually we've got many partners that have given up their time to be here this evening. So thank you ever so much to you. Keep an eye out across the council's social media channels, as we'll be promoting this live Q&A and others more in the next few days, to help keep people up to date and to give you the opportunity to ask your questions. Please do feel free to continue to leave comments and questions, and the council's communications team will try to get back to you in the next 24 hours. And then that's it. Finally, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Have a wonderful evening, enjoy your tea, and stay safe. See you soon.